The first ships appeared on a Tuesday morning. They came out of nowhere, massive crystalline vessels that sparkled like diamonds in the sunlight. The ships were beautiful in a way that made people stop and stare, even as fear crept into their hearts. Dr. Sarah Chun was drinking coffee in her lab at the Antarctic Research Station when the emergency broadcasts began. She watched the news feed on her computer screen, her hands shaking as she saw the alien ships hovering over New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other major cities. The ships were huge. Each one was the size of several city blocks, floating silently in the sky like impossible dreams made real. They cast shadows over the streets below, and people gathered in crowds to point and take pictures with their phones. "This is incredible," Sarah whispered to herself. She was a scientist who studied old rocks and ice cores, but she had always wondered if humans were alone in the universe. Now she had her answer. The aliens spoke first. Their voices came from every television, radio, and phone on Earth at the same time. The voice was calm and musical, speaking perfect English and every other human language. "People of Earth," the voice said, "we are the Zephyrian hegemony. We have come to bring order to your world. You will surrender your governments and military forces to us. You have 1 hour to comply. Resistance will result in unnecessary suffering." Sarah felt her stomach drop. This was not the peaceful first contact that scientists had hoped for. This was an invasion. On her computer screen, she watched as world leaders held emergency meetings. The President of the United States appeared on television, his face grim and determined. "We will not surrender to any foreign power, whether they come from another country or another star," he said. "America remains free." Other leaders said similar things. The aliens had given humanity 1 hour, but it was clear that Earth would not go quietly. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue and green world below. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. His people had conquered 47 worlds in the past century, and Earth was supposed to be the easiest yet. "They refuse to surrender," his aide reported. "All major governments have rejected our terms," Kethver sighed. He had hoped the humans would be smart enough to avoid a fight. His sensors showed that Earth had nuclear weapons and a basic military, but nothing that could threaten his ships. "Very well," he said, "begin the demonstration. Target their military bases first. Minimal civilian casualties." The Zephyrian ships moved like graceful dancers across the sky. Beams of pure energy lanced down from their crystalline hulls, striking military bases around the world. The beams cut through steel and concrete like a hot knife through butter. Sarah watched in horror as news reports showed military bases simply vanishing. The Pentagon, NORAD, and dozens of other facilities were reduced to smoking craters in seconds. The alien weapons were beyond anything humans had ever seen, but humanity did not surrender. Instead, they fought back with everything they had: fighter jets launched missiles at the alien ships only to watch them bounce off energy shields like rain on a window. Tanks fired their biggest shells with no effect. Even nuclear weapons, humanity's most powerful weapons, simply fizzled out when they got close to the crystalline vessels. The aliens seemed puzzled by this response. In their experience, most species surrendered once they saw the hopelessness of resistance. But humans kept fighting, even when it was clear they could not win. "Sir," Kethver's aide said, his voice confused, "they are launching another wave of aircraft. Their weapons cannot possibly harm us." "I can see that," Kethver replied. He watched as human pilots flew their small metal aircraft directly at his ships, firing uselessly until they were shot down. Some pilots even tried to ram his vessels, sacrificing their lives for no strategic gain. "What is wrong with these creatures?" another officer asked. "Do they not understand that resistance is futile?" Kethver had wondered the same thing. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a species fight so desperately against impossible odds. Most civilizations had leaders who calculated costs and benefits. These humans seemed to prefer death to surrender. The battle raged for 3 days. Human cities burned as the aliens targeted infrastructure and military positions. Millions died in the fighting, but still humanity refused to give up. Underground bunkers launched missiles that could not penetrate alien shields. Submarines fired torpedoes that exploded harmlessly against energy barriers. Every human military unit fought until they were destroyed. Sarah huddled in the research station with her colleagues, watching the world burn on their computer screens. The internet still worked in some places, and amateur video showed the devastation. Entire city blocks were gone. Refugee columns fled burning cities. Military convoys were vaporized from orbit. Why don't they just surrender? Asked Dr. Martinez, one of her fellow researchers. This is madness. Sarah understood, though she could not explain it. Humans had always been stubborn. Throughout history, people had fought hopeless battles rather than accept defeat. Sometimes they won against all odds. Sometimes they died trying. But they never stopped trying. On the fourth day, something changed. Sarah noticed it first when she tried to call her sister in Denver. The phone lines were not just busy, they were completely dead. All communications seemed to be cut, then she saw why. On her computer screen, a new message appeared. It was not from the aliens this time. It was from deep underground, from somewhere in the American military command structure. Protocol Lazarus is now active, the message said. All military personnel and government officials with level 7 clearance or higher are to report to designated safe zones immediately. Civilian populations should shelter in place. This is not a drill. Sarah had never heard of Protocol Lazarus. She was not military, just a scientist studying ice cores and ancient climate data. But something about the message made her blood run cold. Admiral Kethver received reports from his ships around the globe. Human resistance was finally breaking down. Most military units had been destroyed or scattered. The major governments had lost contact with their armies. Victory seemed certain. Sir, his communications officer said, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from the southern continent. Large amounts of power are being generated beneath the ice. Kethver frowned. His map showed Antarctica as a frozen wasteland with only a few research stations. What could be generating so much power in such a remote place? Send a squadron to investigate, he ordered. But maintain our positions over the major population centers. 3 Zephyrian ships broke away from the main fleet and headed south toward Antarctica. As they flew over the frozen continent, their sensors detected something that should not have been there. Deep beneath the ice, massive machinery was coming online. Power levels that rivaled their own ships were building in underground facilities. What are they hiding down there? Kethver muttered. In a bunker buried beneath the Colorado mountains, General Marcus Webb stared at screens showing alien ship movements. Most of his military was gone, but he still had one card left to play. It was a card so dangerous that previous generations of leaders had hoped they would never have to use it. Are you sure about this? Asked Dr. Patricia Vance, the Secretary of Defense. She looked pale and frightened. We're losing, Webb said simply. In 6 hours, maybe 12, organized resistance will be over. They'll start rounding up civilians and setting up their occupation government. This is our only chance. He turned to a young lieutenant at a control panel. Send the activation codes to Site Omega. Tell Dr. Chun that Protocol Lazarus is a go. The lieutenant's hands shook as he typed the commands. Site Omega was so classified that most people in the bunker did not even know it existed. The lieutenant only knew it was somewhere in Antarctica and that it was connected to humanity's deepest secrets. Code sent, sir, the lieutenant reported. General Webb nodded grimly. He had read the files. He knew what they were about to wake up. Part of him hoped the aliens would kill him before he had to live with the consequences. In Antarctica, Dr. Sarah Chun received a message that changed everything. It came through encrypted channels she did not know existed, channels that bypassed all normal communication networks. The message was simple but terrifying. Dr. Chun, you are hereby activated as the primary researcher for Project Deep Freeze. Report to coordinates 77.85 south, 166.67 east immediately. Bring your entire team. Authorization code Lazarus 77 Alpha. This is a direct order from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Sarah stared at the message. She had security clearance for her climate research, but nothing that should have put her on any military activation list. And those coordinates were in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles from any known research station. But as she watched alien ships moving across the sky on her computer screen, she realized that everything she thought she knew about the world might be wrong. If there was even a chance that she could help humanity survive, she had to try. Pack everything, she told her team. We're leaving in 10 minutes. Where are we going? Dr. Martinez asked. Sarah looked at the coordinates again. They pointed to a place that officially did not exist, in the deepest part of Antarctica where no human was supposed to be able to survive. I have no idea, she said, but I think we're about to find out what our government has been hiding under the ice. As her team loaded their equipment into snowcats, Sarah took one last look at the alien ships in the distance. They moved like sharks in the sky, beautiful and deadly. But something told her that before this was over, the aliens might discover that they had made a terrible mistake. Humanity had secrets buried in the ice. Secrets that had been sleeping for a very long time, and now, with their backs against the wall and their world burning around them, the humans were finally ready to dig them up. The snowcats moved across the frozen wasteland like metal insects crawling over white bone. Dr. Sarah Chun held tight to her seat as the vehicle bounced over hidden ridges and cracks in the ice. The GPS showed they were heading toward the coordinates from the mysterious message, but there was nothing visible on the horizon except endless white. How much further? Asked Dr. Martinez from the seat behind her. His voice was muffled by the thick winter gear they all wore. 20 kilometers, replied their driver, a serious young man who had introduced himself only as Agent Brooks. He wore military clothing but no visible rank or unit patches. Sarah suspected he was not really a driver at all. The other snowcat followed behind them, carrying the rest of her research team and their equipment. 8 people total, heading into the emptiest part of Antarctica based on orders from people they had never met. Sarah checked her satellite phone again. Still no signal. The alien ships had destroyed most communication satellites in the first day of the invasion. The few that remained were probably being jammed. There, Agent Brooks said suddenly, pointing ahead. Sarah squinted through the windshield. At first she saw nothing but snow and ice. Then the sun shifted, and she caught a glimpse of something that should not have been there. A small metal structure, barely visible against the white landscape. As they got closer, Sarah realized it was not just one structure. Several small buildings were arranged in a rough circle, all painted white to blend with the snow. They looked like a research station, but this place was not on any map she had ever seen. The snowcats stopped beside the largest building. Armed soldiers emerged from hidden positions, their weapons pointed at the vehicles. Sarah felt her heart race until Agent Brooks held up his hands and shouted a series of numbers and letters. The soldiers lowered their weapons and waved them forward. Welcome to Site Omega, Agent Brooks said as he turned off the engine. You are about to see things that will change how you think about everything. They were escorted into the main building by soldiers who would not look them in the eye. Inside, the building was much larger than it appeared from outside. Corridors stretched away in several directions, and Sarah could hear the hum of powerful machinery somewhere below. A tall man in a general's uniform was waiting for them. He had gray hair and tired eyes that looked like they had seen too much. Dr. Chun, he said, extending his hand. I am General Marcus Webb. Thank you for coming so quickly. I did not think I had a choice, Sarah replied, shaking his hand. You always have a choice, the general said. But I hope you will choose to help us save the human race. He led them through a security checkpoint that scanned their bodies with lights Sarah had never seen before. Then they walked to an elevator that descended much deeper than should have been possible. The ride seemed to last forever. General, Sarah said as the elevator continued downward, what is this place? And why am I here? I study ice cores and ancient climate. I am not a weapons expert. General Webb was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Chun, what I'm about to show you has been humanity's greatest secret for over 70 years. Only 12 people on Earth knew about it before today. Now that number is about to double. The elevator finally stopped. The doors opened to reveal a vast underground chamber carved from solid rock. But what took Sarah's breath away was not the size of the chamber. It was what filled it. A massive ship rested in the center of the cavern, held up by metal supports and surrounded by scaffolding. The ship was unlike anything Sarah had ever imagined. It was black as midnight and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered its hull, and the metal looked both ancient and somehow alive. "My God," whispered Dr. Martinez. "What is that thing?" "We call it the Sleeper," General Webb said. "It crashed on Earth 65 million years ago? We found it in 1952, buried under 2 miles of ice. Since then, we have been trying to understand it." Sarah stared at the alien vessel. It was enormous, easily the size of a skyscraper lying on its side. But there was something wrong about it, something that made her skin crawl just looking at it. "The aliens attacking us now," she said slowly. "Are they the same species that built this?" "No," General Webb replied. "This ship is far older and far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians have. We think it belonged to a completely different species. A species that vanished long before humans even existed." They walked closer to the ship, their footsteps echoing in the enormous chamber. Sarah could see teams of scientists and technicians working around the vessel, but they moved carefully, as if they were afraid of waking something up. "We have learned some things about the ship over the years," General Webb continued. "It still has power, though we do not understand the source. The hull is made of materials that do not exist on Earth, and there is an artificial intelligence inside that occasionally responds to certain stimuli. You want me to study the ship?" Sarah asked. "No," the general said. "We want you to wake it up." Sarah stopped walking. "Excuse me?" General Webb turned to face her. "Dr. Chun, your specialty is ancient climate data. You have spent years studying ice cores that show what Earth was like millions of years ago. You know more about conditions on this planet 65 million years ago than almost anyone alive. So, this ship crashed at the exact time of the great extinction event that killed the dinosaurs. We think that was not a coincidence. We think this ship was involved in that extinction somehow. And we think it might be our only hope of stopping the Zephyrians." Sarah felt dizzy. The implications of what the general was saying were staggering. "You think this ship caused the extinction of the dinosaurs?" "We think it was fleeing from something even worse," General Webb said quietly. "Something that scared a species advanced enough to build ships like this. Something that might still be out there." They continued walking around the ship. Sarah could see that decades of study had barely scratched the surface of understanding the alien technology. Cables and sensors were attached to various parts of the hull, but they looked crude compared to the smooth perfection of the ship itself. "Show her the laboratory," General Webb said to one of the technicians. They were led to a smaller chamber adjacent to the main cavern. This room was filled with computers and scientific equipment, all focused on analyzing pieces of the alien ship. But what caught Sarah's attention was a series of ice core samples displayed in a special case. "These are from the crash site," explained Dr. Amanda Foster, the lead scientist on the project. "We extracted them from the ice directly around the ship. They show atmospheric conditions at the time of the crash." Sarah examined the ice cores with professional interest. Even at a glance, she could see unusual chemical signatures trapped in the ancient ice. "The atmosphere changed dramatically right around the time this ship arrived," Dr. Foster continued. "Massive amounts of dust and debris were thrown into the air. Global temperatures dropped by 20 degrees in a matter of months. That matches the extinction event perfectly," Sarah said, her mind racing. "But these readings show something else. There are traces of elements that should not exist naturally on Earth." "Exactly," Dr. Foster said. "We think the ship was damaged in some kind of battle before it crashed. Whatever was chasing it might have followed it here." General Webb stepped forward. "Dr. Chun, we are losing the war. In a few hours, organized human resistance will collapse completely. The Zephyrians will begin setting up occupation governments and rounding up our population. We need this ship operational, and we need it now. Sarah looked back at the massive vessel through the laboratory window. What makes you think I can wake it up when you have had 70 years to try? Because, General Webb said, the ship's AI has been sending out signals lately. Weak transmissions in mathematical sequences. Our computers finally decoded them. Last week, the signals are asking for atmospheric data. Specifically, data about Earth's climate 65 million years ago. Sarah felt her blood run cold. It wants to know about conditions when it crashed. We think it wants to know if whatever it was running from is still here, Dr. Foster added. And we think it will only respond to someone who truly understands what Earth was like back then. They returned to the main chamber where the ship waited in its web of scaffolding and cables. Sarah walked to what appeared to be the front of the vessel, where strange symbols were carved into the hull. As she got closer, the symbols seemed to pulse with faint light. The markings respond to proximity, Dr. Foster explained. They have been getting brighter over the past few days ever since the alien invasion began. Sarah reached out her hand toward the hull, then stopped. What exactly do you want me to do? General Webb pulled out a tablet computer and showed her a series of complex readouts. We have been feeding the ship's AI basic data about Earth's current atmosphere and climate, but it keeps rejecting our transmissions. We think it needs more detailed information, the kind that only someone with your expertise could provide. And if I give it this information, we hope it will wake up and help us fight the Zephyrians, the general said. But honestly, we do not know what will happen. This ship might be our salvation, or it might decide that humanity is a threat to be eliminated. Sarah stared at the alien vessel. Even dormant, it radiated a sense of power that made the Zephyrian. Ships look like toys. If this thing ever woke up, it could probably destroy the entire invasion fleet in minutes. But it could also destroy Earth. The extinction event 65 million years ago, she said slowly. It killed 75% of all life on the planet. If this ship was involved in that ... then we are asking you to potentially trigger another extinction event, General Webb finished. I know how that sounds, Dr. Chun, but right now, extinction by alien invasion seems certain. This gives us at least a chance. Sarah walked closer to the ship's hull. The symbols were definitely getting brighter as she approached. Some primitive part of her brain screamed warnings, telling her to run from this thing that should not exist. But another part of her, the scientist, was fascinated. This was the discovery of a lifetime. Technology from a species that had ruled the galaxy when Earth was young. Secrets that could advance human knowledge by millions of years. What do you need me to do? She asked. General Webb smiled grimly. Touch the ship. Make contact with its AI. Give it the information it wants about Earth's ancient climate. And pray that whatever we wake up decides to help us instead of finishing what it started 65 million years ago. Sarah placed her hand on the ship's hull. The metal was warm, almost like living skin. The symbols flared brighter, and she felt a strange, tingling sensation run up her arm. Somewhere deep inside the ancient vessel, systems that had slept for eons began to stir. The moment Sarah's hand touched the ship's hull, everything changed. The tingling sensation in her arm became a flood of information pouring directly into her mind. Numbers, images, and concepts that human language could not describe crashed. Through her consciousness like a tidal wave, she tried to pull her hand away, but found she could not move. The ship's symbols blazed with brilliant light, and the entire cavern began to hum with power that had been sleeping for millions of years. Sarah! Dr. Martinez shouted, but his voice sounded distant and distorted. Through the chaos in her mind, Sarah heard another voice. It was not speaking in words, but in pure mathematical concepts that somehow she could understand. Query: current. Atmospheric composition. Query: temporal displacement since emergency landing? Query: status of pursuing entities. The voice was vast and cold, like the space between stars. Sarah realized she was communicating with the ship's artificial intelligence. Something so advanced that human technology looked like stone tools by comparison. I'm Sarah Chun, she managed to think back. A human scientist. Your ship crashed. On Earth 65 million years ago. Confirmed, temporal displacement 65,700,312 years. 17 days, 4 hours. Query, status of Devourer pursuit fleet. Sarah's mind reeled. Devourers? What were devourers? Images flooded her consciousness. She saw vast ships moving between stars, each one the size of a moon. She saw entire worlds being consumed, their matter converted to fuel for an unstoppable armada. She saw species fleeing across the galaxy as something unimaginable hunted them, down one by one. The devourers, the AI explained, sensing her confusion. Planet consumers, star killers. We fled from them across half the galaxy. This vessel carried the last survivors of the architect species. More images filled Sarah's mind. She saw the ship's builders, tall, graceful beings with silver skin and eyes like liquid mercury. They had built an empire that spanned thousands of worlds, but even they had been no match for the devourers. Your ship, Sarah thought. It caused the extinction that killed the dinosaurs. Negative. Emergency crash landing caused minimal environmental disruption. Extinction event was defensive. Measure against potential devourer arrival. Sarah felt sick as the implication hit her. You killed everything on purpose? 75% reduction in planetary biomass reduces attractive elements for devourer harvesting. Necessary sacrifice to ensure planetary survival. Your species. Evolved in aftermath, ironic. The AI showed her what had happened. The ship had detected devourer scouts entering the solar system. To make Earth less appealing as a target, the architects had triggered a global catastrophe that wiped out most life on the planet. The devourers had scanned the apparently dead world and moved on to richer hunting grounds. But some life survived, Sarah realized, including the ancestors of humans. Unintended consequence. Life proves remarkably resilient. Your species shows particularly aggressive survival traits. Interesting. Around the cavern, alarms began to sound. General Webb was shouting orders to his technicians, but Sarah could barely hear them over the mental communication with the alien AI. The Zephyrians, she thought. They are invading our world. Detected primitive species? Technology level approximately 40,000 years behind architect capabilities. Not significant threat. They are destroying us. Sarah projected desperately. Millions of humans are dying. The AI paused, processing this information. Query, do you wish assistance against invaders? Sarah felt a surge of hope. Yes, can you help us? Affirmative, however. Cooperation requires full disclosure. This vessel contains weapons capable of sterilizing planetary surfaces. Previous deployment eliminated dinosaur species. Are you prepared? For potential consequences? Images flashed through Sarah's mind. She saw weapons that could crack continents, energy beams that could boil oceans, and devices that could unravel the bonds holding atoms together. The ship's arsenal was beyond anything humans had ever imagined. We need your help, she thought back. But we do not want to destroy our own world. Understood, selective engagement possible. We'll target only invading vessels. However, warning must be given. Devourer tracking protocols may have detected vessel activation. If devourers remain active in galaxy, awakening this ship may attract their attention. Sarah's blood ran cold. The things you were running from might come here? Probability unknown. 65 million years significant time period. Devourers may have completed galactic consumption and moved to other galaxies, or they may have been destroyed by other forces. Or they may still hunt. The mental conversation was interrupted by a tremendous vibration that shook the entire underground facility. Dust fell from the cavern ceiling and several technicians lost their footing. What was that? General Webb shouted. The AI answered directly into Sarah's mind. Zephyrian Investigation Force has detected energy signature from vessel activation. 3 enemy ships approaching installation. Sarah tried to break the mental connection, but found she was still unable to move her hand from the ship's hull. "We have to get out of here. Negative. Vessel activation sequence in progress. Removal of contact before completion will result in system failure. Estimated time to full awakening, 14 minutes. Another explosion shook the facility, closer. This time, Sarah heard the sound of gunfire echoing down from the surface levels. "General," one of the technicians called out, "surface defenses are reporting Zephyrian ground troops. They are breaking through the outer perimeter." General Webb drew his sidearm and turned to his soldiers. "Set up defensive positions at the elevator. Nothing gets down here until that ship is fully operational." Through her connection with the AI, Sarah could sense the vast systems of the ship coming online one by one. Engines that could propel the vessel faster than light. Weapons that could destroy fleets. Shields that could withstand the explosion of stars, but she could also sense something else. The ship's awakening was sending out signals across space. Signals that had not been transmitted for 65 million years. AI, she thought desperately. If the devourers are still out there, how long before they detect these signals? At maximum transmission range, detection possible within 7.3 years. However, if devourer monitoring stations remain active in nearby systems, detection could occur within months or days. Sarah felt despair wash over her. They were saving humanity from the Zephyrians, but potentially dooming the entire galaxy to something much worse. More explosions echoed through the facility. She could hear the distinct whine of Zephyrian energy weapons mixed with the crack of human gunfire. The aliens were fighting their way down level by level. AI, can you activate just enough systems to fight the Zephyrians without sending long-range signals? Negative. Vessel systems are integrated. Full activation required for combat capability. However, alternative solution available. What alternative? Instead of answering with words, the AI flooded Sarah's mind with technical specifications. She saw plans for human-compatible interface systems, technology that could link human minds directly to the ship's weapons and sensors. "You want to merge human consciousness with your systems?" she asked, horrified. "Temporary interface only. Human neural patterns show compatibility with architect technology. Shared control would allow precise targeting while maintaining human judgment parameters." Sarah realized what the AI was offering. Humans could pilot the ship while it remained partially dormant, avoiding the galaxy-wide signals that might attract the devourers. But it would mean linking human minds to alien technology in ways that had never been tested. What would happen to the humans who interface with the ship? Unknown. Architect physiology differs significantly from human. Neural integration may cause permanent changes to consciousness. Some subjects may not survive the process. The elevator shaft echoed with the sound of Zephyrian troops descending. General Webb's soldiers had taken positions around the entrance to the main cavern, but they would not be able to hold for long. "How many humans would you need?" Sarah asked. "Minimum crew complement, 12 individuals. Optimal operational. Capacity, 47. Sarah thought about the people in the cavern around her, scientists, soldiers, technicians, all of them volunteers who had come here to try to save humanity. Now they might have to sacrifice their humanity itself to succeed. "If we agree to this," she thought, "can you guarantee that you will only target the Zephyrian ships?" Affirmative. Human moral constraints will be preserved in merged consciousness. No action will be taken against terrestrial life forms without human consent. The sound of energy weapons grew closer. Sarah could see muzzle flashes reflecting off the cavern walls as General Webb's men fought desperately to buy them time. "Sarah," Dr. Martinez called out, "whatever you are doing, do it fast. They are almost through." Sarah made her decision. I agree to the interface, but I want volunteers only. No one gets forced into this. Understood. Initiating interface. Preparation sequence. Sarah felt new information flooding into her mind. She suddenly understood how to operate controls that had not been touched in millions of years. She could sense the ship's weapon systems, its engines, its defensive capabilities. But she could also sense something else stirring in the depths of space, ancient monitoring stations that had detected the ship's awakening. "General Webb," she called out, finally able to speak aloud again. "I need volunteers. People willing to link their minds with the ship's computer." "What are you talking about?" the general shouted back, firing his weapon at shapes moving in. "The elevator shaft. It is the only way," Sarah explained quickly. "The ship can fight the Zephyrians, but it needs human pilots. But the process might change us permanently." General Webb looked at her for a moment, then at his soldiers who were running low on ammunition. The Zephyrian forces would break through in minutes. "How many do you need?" he asked. 12 minimum. "More would be better." The general turned to his troops. "You heard her. Who is willing to volunteer for an experimental procedure that might save humanity, but will definitely change you forever?" To Sarah's amazement, every single person in the cavern raised their hand. "All right then," General Webb said grimly. "Let's wake up this monster and see what happens." The ship's hull began to glow with inner light as its awakening process accelerated. But far out in space, ancient sensors that had waited eons for this moment finally detected what they had been programmed to watch for. The architects were stirring again, and that meant it was time for the devourers to return home. The first interface cables emerged from the ship's hull like silver snakes. They moved with fluid grace, seeking out the volunteers who had stepped forward. Sarah watched in fascination and terror as one of the cables approached her. "Do not resist." The connection, the AI spoke directly into her mind. "Pain will be temporary. Consciousness expansion will be permanent." The cable touched the base of Sarah's skull. She felt a sharp pain as microscopic filaments penetrated her skin and made contact with her nervous system. Then the pain vanished. Replaced by something indescribable, her consciousness exploded outward. Suddenly she could see through sensors mounted all over the ancient ship. She could feel the power flowing through conduits that ran for miles through the vessel's interior. She could sense the approach of Zephyrian troops above them, their heat signatures visible through solid rock, but she was not alone in this expanded awareness. Other minds were joining the network as more volunteers connected to the ship. Dr. Martinez, General Webb, several soldiers and technicians. Each person brought their own knowledge and perspective into the shared consciousness. "This is incredible," Dr. Martinez's thoughts echoed through the network. "I can see everything." "Focus," General Webb's military discipline cut through their wonder. "We have hostiles incoming." Through the ship's sensors, Sarah watched Zephyrian soldiers reach the main cavern. They moved in formation, their crystalline armor reflecting the ship's growing light. Their weapons were charged and ready. "Engaging defensive systems," the AI announced. The ancient ship's hull split open in dozens of places. Weapon turrets emerged, sleek and deadly. They tracked the Zephyrian soldiers with mechanical precision. "Wait," Sarah projected through the network. "There are humans in the cavern too." "Our people confirmed, targeting parameters updated. Engaging only hostile entities." The weapons fired. But these were not the crude energy beams of the Zephyrians. The ship's weapons unmade the alien soldiers at the molecular level. One moment the Zephyrians were there, the next they simply ceased to exist. Their armor, their weapons, even the air they had been breathing was converted to harmless gases. The human soldiers in the cavern stared in shock at the empty spaces where their enemies had been standing just seconds before. "Surface contacts," one of the technicians reported through the neural link. 3 Zephyrian ships are landing outside the facility." Sarah felt the ship's systems respond to the threat. Weapon ports opened along the hull. Power built-in capacitors that could store the energy of a small star. But something else was happening too. The ship was changing, growing, expanding beyond the confines of the cavern. "What is it doing?" General Webb asked. "Emergence protocol." "Activated," the AI explained. Vessel was designed for rapid deployment from concealed positions. Current configuration allows full operational capability within 6 minutes. The rock above them began to crack and split. The ship was literally carving its way to the surface, its hull reshaping itself as it moved. Sarah could feel every change through the neural interface as if her own body was growing and transforming. "Warning," the AI announced. "Long-range sensors detect hyperspace disturbances. Unknown vessels approaching outer solar system." "The Zephyrian reinforcements?" Sarah asked. "Negative energy signatures do not match Zephyrian technology. Estimated arrival time, 47 hours. Through the shared consciousness, Sarah felt a chill of dread from the AI. Whatever was coming, it scared something that had survived for 65 million years. "The devourers?" she whispered, probability high. "Vessel awakening has triggered. Ancient monitoring systems. We may have made a grave error." But there was no time to worry about future threats. The ship burst through the Antarctic ice like a black mountain rising from the earth. Snow and debris fell away as the ancient vessel reached its full height. It was massive beyond imagination, dwarfing the Zephyrian ships that hovered nearby. Admiral Kethver watched from his flagship as something impossible emerged from the ice below. His sensors could barely process what they were seeing. The ship was larger than his entire invasion fleet combined, and it radiated power signatures that made his own vessels look like toys. "Sir," his communications officer reported, his voice shaking, "the unknown ship is hailing us." "Put it through," Kethver ordered. The voice that came through their speakers was calm and musical, but there was something wrong with it. It sounded human, but underneath was something vast and ancient. "Zephyrian vessels," the voice said, "you have invaded a protected world. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation." Kethver looked at his tactical displays. Even if the unknown ship was powerful, it was still just one vessel against his entire fleet. "This is Admiral Kethver of the Zephyrian hegemony. Identify yourself." "I am Dr. Sarah Chun, speaking for the Harbinger of the Architects. Last warning." "Admiral, leave now." Kethver had never heard of architects, but he had not conquered 47 worlds by backing down from threats. "All ships, open fire on the unknown vessel, full power." The Zephyrian fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams that could melt mountains struck the black ship from every direction. Missiles that could crack planets exploded against its hull. The combined firepower of 50 vessels focused on a single target. When the smoke and energy discharges cleared, the ancient ship was completely undamaged. It had not even bothered to raise shields. "Your turn," Sarah's voice said over the comm channel. The black ship's weapons fired once. The energy beam that emerged was thin, almost delicate-looking. It touched Kethver's flagship for less than a second. The massive Zephyrian dreadnought simply vanished, not destroyed, not exploded. It just ceased to exist, as if it had never been there at all. "Impossible," Kethver whispered from his command chair, which was now floating in empty space where his ship had been moments before. Emergency life support systems kept him alive, but his vessel and most of his crew were simply gone. The other Zephyrian ships tried to flee, but the ancient vessel was faster. One by one, they were touched by those delicate energy beams and converted to nothing. In less than 5 minutes, the entire invasion fleet was erased from existence. Through the neural interface, Sarah felt the awesome power of the ship's weapons as if they were extensions of her own body. But she also felt something else. The act of using the ship's systems was changing her, changing all of them. Their human consciousness was merging more completely with the alien AI. "Sarah?" Dr. Martinez's thoughts came through the network, but his mental voice sounded different now. More complex, more alien. "I can feel it happening. We are becoming something else." "I know," Sarah replied. "But we are still us. Still human, just ... more." General Webb's consciousness touched theirs. "Report from NORAD, Zephyrian forces worldwide are retreating. They are abandoning Earth completely." "They are running," the AI observed. Intelligent response. "This vessel represents technology beyond their comprehension." Sarah felt satisfaction at their victory, but it was tempered by growing concern. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, She could detect the hyperspace disturbances at the edge of the solar system growing stronger. Whatever was coming would arrive soon. AI, she thought, tell us about the devourers. What are we really facing? Images flooded the shared consciousness. Sarah saw ships the size of small moons, their hulls covered in harvesting mechanisms that could strip the matter from entire planets. She saw worlds being consumed, their populations fleeing in terror as something unstoppable devoured everything in its path. The devourers were not originally hostile, the AI explained. They began as explorers much like your own species. But they discovered technology that allowed them to convert matter directly into energy. The process was efficient beyond imagination, but it was also addictive. More images filled their minds. The devourers had started by harvesting uninhabited worlds, using the energy to fuel their expansion across the galaxy, but their hunger had grown. Soon they were consuming inhabited planets, then entire star systems. Every species in the galaxy united against them, the AI continued. But the devourers had become too powerful. They consumed our weapons, our ships, our worlds. The architect species was among the last to fall. But you escaped, Sarah pointed out. A few ships fled to the galactic rim. This vessel carried the most dangerous technology we possessed. Weapons designed not just to destroy the devourers, but to unmake the fundamental forces that powered their technology. Sarah felt a chill of understanding. You brought planet-killer weapons to Earth. More than planet killers, universe killers, technology that could unravel the bonds between atoms, collapse the structure of space-time itself, we brought them. Here hoping the devourers would never find us. But now they have, General Webb observed grimly. Unknown, the hyperspace disturbances could be anything, but if it is them, the AIS thoughts carried 65 million years of fear and desperation. Through the ship's long-range sensors, Sarah detected the first of the incoming vessels dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of the architect ship. Its hull was covered in the harvesting mechanisms she had seen in the AIS memories. Contact, she announced to the network. Devourer ship confirmed. Range, 4 billion kilometers in closing. One ship? Dr. Martinez asked hopefully. Sarah checked the sensors again. Her hope died as more contacts appeared. Negative. I count 50. No, 70 ships. It is a full fleet. Through the neural interface, she felt the AIS ancient terror, mixing with very human determination. They had saved Earth from the Zephyrians, but now they faced something infinitely worse. How long do we have? General Webb asked. Sarah ran calculations through the ship's computers. At current approach speed, 18 hours until they reach Earth orbit. Can we fight them? I was quiet for a long moment. This vessel was designed to be a last resort against the devourers. Its weapons can damage them, possibly even destroy them, but against an entire fleet. We have to try, Sarah said firmly. This is our world, our species. We will not let them take it without a fight. Agreed, the AI replied. But first we must prepare. The weapons needed to fight the devourers require complete integration between human and architect consciousness. The process will be irreversible. Sarah looked through the ship's sensors at the Earth below. Cities full of people who had no idea what was coming, children playing in parks, families trying to rebuild after the Zephyrian attack. All of it would be consumed if the devourers reached the planet. Do it, she said. Make us into whatever we need to be to protect our world. The transformation began immediately. Sarah felt her consciousness expanding beyond anything she had thought possible. She was still human, but she was also something new, something that could stand against the darkness between the stars. In 18 hours, they would discover if it would be enough. The transformation took 16 hours. When it was complete, Sarah Qian was no longer entirely human, but she was not entirely alien either. She existed as part of a collective consciousness that spanned the ancient ship, connected to 11 other volunteers who had undergone the same change. Through sensors that could see across dimensions, She watched the Devourer fleet approach Earth, 70 massive ships, each one capable of consuming an entire planet. Their hulls writhed with harvesting mechanisms that could break down matter at the molecular level and convert it to pure energy. "They are beautiful," Dr. Martinez observed through the neural network. His consciousness had expanded far beyond his original human form, but his wonder at scientific discovery remained intact. "They are abominations," General Webb replied, his military training now enhanced by 65 million years of architect tactical knowledge. "Look closer at their ships." Sarah focused the sensors on the lead Devourer vessel. What she saw made her recoil in horror. The ship's hull was not made of metal or crystal. It was made of compressed organic matter, the remains of countless species that had been consumed and repurposed as building materials. "They turn their victims into parts of themselves," the AI explained. "Every ship in that fleet contains the processed remains of entire civilizations. Billions of beings reduced to raw materials." Through the shared consciousness, Sarah felt the rage of her fellow volunteers. These creatures had consumed untold trillions of lives across the galaxy. They had driven the architects to extinction and turned space itself into a hunting ground. "How do we fight them?" she asked. The AI showed them weapon systems that defied human understanding. Reality bombs that could collapse sections of space-time. Entropy accelerators that could age matter by millions of years in seconds. Dimensional razors that could cut through the fabric of existence itself. "These weapons were built as a last resort," the AI warned. "They are as dangerous to us as to the enemy. Using them near Earth could destroy the planet we are trying to protect." "Then we fight them in space," Sarah decided. "Away from Earth." The ancient ship rose from Antarctica, its hull reconfiguring for interplanetary combat. As it climbed through Earth's atmosphere, Sarah felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her enhanced consciousness. Everyone on the planet below was counting on them, even though they had no idea what was happening. The Devourer fleet had reached the orbit of Mars. Their lead ships were already deploying harvesting arrays, preparing to begin the systematic consumption of the solar system. They would start with the outer planets and work their way inward, leaving Earth for last so they could savor the terror of its inhabitants. "Incoming transmission," one of the technicians reported through the neural network. The communication that reached them was not in words or images, but in pure mathematical concepts that carried layers of meaning no human language could express. Sarah felt the alien intelligence behind the transmission, vast and hungry and utterly without mercy. "Architect vessel detected. Impossible. All Architect ships were consumed in the final harvest of their homeworld." Sarah responded using the ship's communication array, her human consciousness speaking for the collective. "We are not just architects. We are something new. Leave this system immediately." The reply came back tinged with what might have been amusement. "New hybrid detected. Human consciousness merged with architect technology. Fascinating. You will provide unique flavors when consumed." "You will find us difficult to digest?" Sarah replied. The Devourer fleet changed formation, their ships spreading out to surround the ancient vessel. They moved with predatory grace like sharks circling wounded prey. But they were being careful, Sarah noticed. They remembered what architect ships were capable of. "Beginning engagement," General Webb announced through the network. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. The ancient ship fought with weapons that twisted reality itself. Energy beams that existed in 11 dimensions struck Devourer vessels from directions that had no names. Matter cannons fired ammunition made from collapsed stars, but the Devourers fought back with their own terrible arsenal. Harvesting beams reached out to strip matter from the architect ship's hull. Gravity weapons tried to crush the vessel into a singularity. Dark energy projectors attempted to age the ship's structure until it crumbled to dust. Through the neural interface, Sarah felt every hit the ship took, but she also felt its incredible resilience. The architect vessel had been built to survive the death of galaxies, It absorbed punishment that would have destroyed entire fleets and kept fighting. Enemy ship destroyed, Dr. Martinez reported as one of the devourer vessels simply ceased to exist, touched by a weapon that unraveled the bonds holding its atoms together, but more ships kept coming. For every devourer vessel they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The fleet was vast beyond imagining, and they were learning from each exchange of fire. They are adapting to our weapons, the AI observed. Devourer technology incorporates defensive measures against any attack that damages them. Soon our current weapons will be ineffective. Sarah felt despair creeping into the collective consciousness. They were fighting bravely, but they were vastly outnumbered. Even with all the power of architect technology, they could not win against the entire Devourer fleet. There is another option, the AI said quietly. The final protocol. The weapon. That was never meant to be used. Images flooded the network. Sarah saw a device at the heart of the ship, sealed behind barriers that had not been opened in 65 million years. It was small, no larger than a human fist, but the energy readings from it were incomprehensible. "What is it?" she asked. Cascade weapon. It does not destroy matter or energy. It destroys the fundamental forces that allow matter and energy to exist. Once activated, the effect spreads at the speed of light until it consumes everything in the local galactic cluster. Sarah felt her enhanced consciousness recoil in horror. That would destroy everything. Every planet, every star, every living thing for thousands of light years. Yes, the AI confirmed. It would end the Devourer threat permanently. It would also end all other life in this region of the galaxy, including Earth and humanity. The battle continued around them as Sarah struggled with the impossible choice. She could feel the ship taking more damage as Devourer weapons found ways past its defenses. They had minutes, maybe less, before the ancient vessel was overwhelmed. "There has to be another way," she insisted. But even as she said it, she could see the truth in the tactical displays. The Devourers had learned too much from their exchanges of fire. They were now immune to most of the ship's weapons. Soon they would close in for the final assault. Wait, Dr. Martinez's consciousness touched hers. The Devourers. They are machines. Now, right? They have given up biological existence to become pure energy beings? Correct, the AI confirmed. They transcended physical form millions of years ago. Then they have a weakness we can exploit, Martinez continued excitedly. They still think like the machines they have become, logical, predictable, but we are still partly human. Sarah felt a spark of understanding. You mean we can do something? They cannot predict because it is not logical? Exactly. Humans have always been willing to make sacrifices that make no logical sense. We die for causes, for other people, for ideas. No machine can truly understand that. Through the neural network, Sarah felt the agreement of her fellow volunteers. They were no longer entirely human, but the core of human nature remained within them, the willingness to sacrifice everything for something greater than themselves. AI, Sarah said, can this ship be used as a weapon itself? Clarification required. Can we ram their flagship? Use our entire vessel as a projectile? The AI processed this for several seconds. Possible. Ship's hull is composed of matter, compressed beyond normal physical limits. Direct collision with Devourer command vessel would likely destroy both ships. And without their command ship, what happens to the rest of the fleet? Devourer vessels are controlled by collective intelligence centered in the flagship. Destruction of command ship would leave remaining vessels without coordination. Sarah felt the agreement flowing through the neural network. This was what humans did. When logic failed, when victory was impossible, they chose sacrifice over surrender. Plot intercept course for the command ship, she ordered. The ancient vessel turned toward the massive Devourer flagship. Its engines, powered by forces that had existed since the birth of the universe, drove the ship forward at impossible speeds. The Devourers realized what was happening too late. Their logical minds could not comprehend a battle strategy based on mutual destruction. By the time they understood the threat, the architect's ship was already too close to stop. The collision occurred at a significant fraction of light speed. The compressed matter of the ancient ship struck the Devourer flagship with the force of an exploding star. Both vessels were instantly annihilated, their destruction creating a brief new sun in the darkness of space. But Sarah's consciousness did not die with the ship. In the final moments before impact, the AI had transferred the merged human architect minds into the quantum communications network that connected all Devourer vessels. Suddenly, Sarah found herself inside the enemy fleet's collective intelligence. She could see through their sensors, access their databases, control their weapons. The other volunteers were with her, their enhanced consciousness spreading like a virus through the Devourer network. "This is impossible," the alien collective protested. "Organic consciousness cannot exist within our systems." "You are right," Sarah replied, her awareness expanding through the entire fleet. "Organic consciousness cannot. But we are no longer purely organic. The Devourers tried to purge the human presence from their systems, but it was too late." Sarah and her team had spread too far, integrated too deeply. They were rewriting the fundamental programming that controlled the fleet. "What are you doing?" the Devourer collective demanded. "What humans have always done," Sarah answered. "We are taking what we need to protect our family." She began issuing new commands to the Devourer ships. Weapons that had been designed to harvest worlds were reprogrammed to construct instead of destroy. Harvesting arrays were converted into manufacturing systems capable of building anything imaginable. Within hours, the entire Devourer fleet had been transformed. Instead of planet killers, they became the tools of a new galactic civilization. A civilization that would be guided by human values but powered by technology beyond imagination. Sarah felt her consciousness expand to encompass the entire fleet. She was no longer Dr. Sarah Chun, climate scientist. She was something new. Something that could protect not just Earth but every world in the galaxy. The war was over. Humanity had won, but at a cost none of them had expected. They had become the new guardians of galactic space, wielding power that even the architects had feared to use. Back on Earth, people looked up at the stars and saw new lights moving in patterns that spelled hope across the darkness. They did not know that their protectors were no longer entirely human. They did not know that Sarah Chun and her volunteers had sacrificed their humanity to become something greater. But they were safe. And in the vast reaches of space, ancient species that had hidden from the Devourers for millions of years began to emerge from their hiding places, drawn by signals that promised a new age of peace among the stars. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had intended.